Hello. My name is Ilona Thompson, and I'm with Palette Exposure, and I am here with Michael Jessen. It's our weekly series. I'm really happy to be with you, Michael, because you and I have gotten together through serendipitous ways, and this is a very organic interaction, but I think that there's a depth and breadth to your life experience that I am learning so much about in every conversation. So I am my number one viewer because of you. And you and I tend to lean, philosophically a bit. We're both thinkers, and it's so great to share that with someone that thinks and feels similarly and really taps into that cerebral part of themselves. You and I, ever since we met, has been touching upon a huge subject. It's called love. Love has so many different iterations and so many ranges. It's not even a singular thing in that sense. There's, of course, the romantic love, there's a parental love, there's religious love. It's a subject that's boundaryless, and we could spend the rest of our lives talking about it and not even touch the sides. But I think now more than ever, we're so in need of more of it.
Wow.
And you're such a powerful example to me. Some people may know you from 90 Day Fiancé fame, but again, it's just such a tiny tip of the iceberg. There's so much more to your love story than your really extraordinary experience with your now wife, Giuliana. There's also your love as a son, as a dad, as a husband, as a citizen, your love of wine, your love of music. And I would love to cover as much as we can in this program. But one of the most extraordinary stories is certainly your romance with Giuliana. And I feel so privileged getting some first person account of this Peter Patter story. My heart just always skips a bit when I see the two of you together.
Well, no, oh, wow. Juliana and I tell you, in some ways, I feel like she's saved my life. Okay. And in these crazy times of duress that we're in now with the virus, and especially here in, basically we're greater New York City area. It's crazy. I don't lose any perspective about my love for Giuliana, because I think that's the backbone. That's the thing I fall back on. There aren't words that can describe my feelings for her, and also how our love has kept my head together in these difficult times. I don't mean to bring it back to something selfish, but I feel like we forged something extraordinarily special. She happens to be an extremely attractive young lady. We met under very unusual, improbable circumstances. It was a love at first sight sort of thing, pretty much. It is real love. And I maybe in my life now, having gone through a marriage, having children, but feeling somebody as a compassionate person, a person of a lot of empathy, and I think the fact that this happened at the age I'm at, I was ready for it. I was ready to receive, I was prepared in the right place at the right time, if you will. And I think, Giuliana, her life arc was much different. A young woman from a poorer part of Brazil who found a way to do something special with her life, and she was becoming or international model. At the time when we met, she was living in Milan, and for her, things happened so fast too. Still young person, but I don't know. She barely really didn't even speak English when we were first meeting, but I don't know. It was a feeling of love, a feeling of something that I can't describe. And you know what? The best thing is that feeling hasn't gone away.
So fantastic. You've gotten quite a bit of attention as a result of the show. And I know that those that know of you and watched you, they're kind of wondering, they're trying to define what is it? What is it that you have? And what is it so special about you? And because Giuliana is a stunning woman, there's of course, those questions as to why. And most people probably are not aware of the fact that she actually approached you. You didn't have some special plot, this suave guy that this young woman couldn't resist. You didn't have some sort of moves or anything like that, did you?
Wow. Well, wow. We're getting into some really interesting territory here. And I think the fact that I am who I am, I'd like to think, is why Giuliana was attracted to me, and why I was attracted to her also, because it sounds so strange, and it's a hard scenario to describe and articulate how we met. And at the time, I was traveling a lot with a dear friend of mine, one of the richest men in the world. No, not a name that people would know. He's smart enough not to be on the lists of richest people, this and that, but big yacht parties, big this and that. Dear friend, and I love him to death. And we he would, summers especially, would just be nice socializing party time. So when we met was on my friend's big boat, I don't know, 100, 150 people probably.
Doesn't sound glamorous.
Yeah, on a boat, believe it or not, and there was plenty of space for all of us. That's how big this boat was, right?
Wow.
And of the 150 or so, there's only maybe, I don't know, 4 or 5, 6 guys maybe.
Wow.
Trying to put.
Yeah.
But this wasn't, and also, sorry, the circumstances under which Giuliana and I got together. This wasn't like, wow, Playland, first time ever. This is something that was the sort of the summer thing that my friend would do, so it wasn't, let's say, the first rodeo. And I will say this, like I was just there for fun, Giuliana was much different, and I don't know. I wish I feel like there's not even words to describe how this came about, but we both, it was truly one of these wonderful romance stories of love just happening like that, and it lasts, and it was something so special. And the more you learn about the other person, the more you're each together, the more it grows. It was beyond just something lustful or something just in the moment, wow, we're having a nice time and whatever. I think if going back to the question, which, okay, what does he have? Me, why is he so special to get such a wonderful person? I think Giuliana and I have we're kindred spirits, you know, underneath a lot of this stuff, family oriented. We're people that in different ways came from, you know, some sort of modest upbringing and arrived at some bizarre stage, you know, in different ways. And we could understand each other in a way. And it just flourished from there.
It just makes so much sense, you know, as you describe this. You're both old souls. When you go through a lot of challenge in life, I think it kind of trains you differently. It matures you differently.
I think so.
And Giuliana, regardless of her actual age number has that quality, almost a classic. There's a wisdom to her.
Yeah.
I've been very privileged to experience firsthand how nurturing she is. She's definitely a caretaker, and the way that she treats people, even a perfect stranger, which I was at the time, there's a depth to her that's uncommon. And I could clearly see how you two connected, because you actually have those qualities as well. You're very generous, you're very welcoming. You're one of the few people that I've met in my life that created an instant sense of trust. And I'm not necessarily the person that trusts easily and instantaneously, but with you, it was so easy. So having been the lucky recipient of being with both of you and that vibe that you create and co-create together,
mm-hmm.
To me, that makes a ton of sense. And it is hard to articulate. It's hard to assign word value to it.
Yeah.
But it was clearly there. It was two worlds meeting and colliding. It was undeniable.
And we just feel lucky, you know. I don't know what else. There's no other word than whatever, you know, the concept of, I guess, luck could be. It happened. And it, you know, before we pressed record, we were talking, you know, there's this concept of, it's not even worth asking yourself the question of the why. Why did it happen? It just is. It did, you know. We're lucky, man. And, you know, here we are now, and we're globally under this, you know, quarantine, the stay-at-home stuff, this virus. And the virus is real. You know, suddenly people I know were in the hospital. Had a friend from my soccer club locally who died. And, you know, that you feel obviously much more for family and those who suffered from that loss. But it's a punch in the gut and it makes life so much more real. And you know, there isn't a why, but here we are. We're together, and it happened, and it is. And count your blessings, I guess. You know.
You know, I think when we look for my definition of soulmate is there's the word soul in it. We want to see their soul, and we want to see the reflection of ours. And soul is ageless. And yes, you're a handsome guy, and you're easy on, you know, not just easy on the eyes, but you're easy to be around and easy to interact with, which is all, you know, very attractive romantically. But there's also that depth, that reflective quality, that safety net, that mirror when you look into the other person's eyes and you see the best representation of yourself. Those are the qualities that will make this love last a lifetime.
Yeah. Well, no matter what happens, and I think, wow, you know, probably, I guess what you would call, you know, somebody who thinks fairly deeply about stuff and can get fairly philosophical, but even coming to this topic of love, right? What is love? Love is a very hard thing to truly define, you know, and it's a feeling. I think, people experience love in many different ways. Love for parents, children, siblings, friends, romantic partners, whatever. There's so many different concepts of love. And I think personally, thinking about, Giuliana and I, we have real love. And I think personally I'm learning, love is not something I ever can throw away. And I think it's also why at the moment with Sarah, my ex-wife, we still have love for each other. We're not a married couple. A marriage wasn't something that worked out with us, but it didn't interrupt some form of love that we have for each other. And so, like with Giuliana and what we're experiencing, I think you're lucky when you come across somebody in life, people in life, where there's truly a connection, a soulful connection. I don't know if you want to call it soulmates or something. There's no good definition of that. And this is a love that with Giuliana, I feel at the time I met her when I had just turned 40 and she was almost 21, and of course, beautiful, wonderfully attractive young woman, sexy, all this stuff. But I don't know if I were at a different place, forget having been married or not, there was something like that time, that being receptive, being in that place, having the experiences I had, I was prepared for it. I was ready to receive what it was she was able to give, and I think what I was able to give, she was ready to receive. Hard to put, a definition to what that is, but there was some form of love. There was like a bond, like, hydrogen and oxygen coming together to make water. I don't know, like you almost can't truly put a definition to it that makes so much sense, but love is like that. This is something, as human beings, this is one of the biggest, craziest mysteries. It leads to the, wars and, collapses of empires and all sorts of, whatever. It's crazy. It's kind of like the heaviest thing that as a human being we deal with,
I agree. I would say it has to be the most powerful emotion that we could possibly feel. And it has motivated some really dramatic world events. When you talk about your relationship with her, it's so evident that you connect on the multitude of levels. And it's also so encouraging because how hopeful do we feel, the rest of us, when we know it's possible? There's just tangible evidence we can look at you and say, this people really connect in every possible way as two souls can. And some people try to take it in other directions, and that's not even worth a discussion. But I think the genesis of them trying to go negative is probably because they can't quite believe, they can't quite wrap their heads around the fact that it's that good and it's possible. And it's not idealistic, it's not made up, it's extremely raw and real. And it's all of those things. It actually, as fairy tale like as it looks and sounds, because you're both so wonderful, there's something underneath it all, the glue, so to speak, that binds you. That's rooted in fundamentally who you are and who you were. And you came in that moment together, circumstances facilitated that, and it was serendipitous in that sense. It was timing. But when you talked about this readiness, you were ready. you were at a place with yourself where
Mhm.
you could pursue a relationship with someone that was also at a place with themselves.
Yes.
So that symbiosis, that cocktail, if you will, that was co-created. That's another entity that was born, which is your love.
Yeah. And I think, actually for both of us at the time, it wasn't necessarily something we were seeking or looking for.
Mhm.
But it happens. It is serendipity. Uh, there is something so undescribable it's there's no way to when asked, like articulate, give an explanation for, give some. It happens, but if we feel so fortunate. That was about 3 years ago now, and we went through, quite a wonderful journey of her coming to America, having a long distance relationship. She finally gets here last summer. We were married in October, and now she's here in Connecticut. And I think I like to think of it, for us now, it's another new beginning, I guess.
Mhm.
And it's also a test of what, the intention, I guess, of why we were in this relationship together. And I think we're fortunate enough that if if we happen to be in, let's say, Venice in a gondola, the most romantic thing you could imagine, or if we were, in the Maldives, or or just hanging out in London because she was working and I was just visiting, or we had a very exotic kind of lifestyle. But, now here we are under quarantine in Connecticut and under the same roof, my children, my ex-wife and her husband. We have puppies who are both passed out here. You can't see them, but literally at my feet.
Adorable.
And life is different, but it hasn't changed our feelings or love or connection with one another. I think it has more to do with where we've had enough experience in life, enough ability to have perspective, enough, we're self-sufficient. And I think we're realistic about the expectations we'd have for each other. And it takes a certain amount of patience and acceptance. And, I think also to be able to have that kind of love, you have to have some level of equanimity with yourself, I guess. Some sort of, you can't project on. Relationships can suffer when you're projecting onto somebody ill feelings you have about yourself.
Love it.
Some relationships can really suffer because someone might have a problem coming to whatever it is, if it's narcissism, if it's just denial or whatever. A lot of relationships suffer because they're projecting their own, negativity or whatever, resentments, disappointments. So I mean, unfortunately, are you there? Sorry, 1 second. Hold on.
You started saying something totally profound, and that's what
Yeah. No,
that it's. Let's just see, I'm muted. Oh, so it's still recording, by the way, but obviously it's going to be.
that's okay.
I'm just
But you can hear me now?
Yes, I can hear you. So, and fortunately, we just started a different.
Yeah. So no, I'll go back to
Thank you.
concept of at least what I'm like an observational psychologist, maybe, like when they say like Monday morning armchair quarterback dude. My mother was a psychologist, so maybe there's something in the bloodline. I don't know, I've connected with that. But I guess if I've seen things in relationships, especially romantic relationships, where you know, problems can be created when one or the other individual starts projecting their own problems, shortcomings, negativity, disappointments, whatever, of themselves onto the other. And it can be that maybe it's their ego, something narcissistic about it even. That's very classic.
That's also self-love, right? There's a word love in it. It's just malignant.
Malignant, exactly. And you to be, I think truly capable of real love and a meaningful relationship, and something where, not fighting, not hating, not having problems, but you have to have some level of acceptance of yourself. Doesn't mean you're perfect at all. You have to we all have problems. We all have things we're dealing with, and it's not easy. The human condition's not easy, but you hope that you have people in your life that are there for you, loving and supporting, and tap into that, not put it back out there and project your problems as if they're creating it. Be realistic about it. Because I'm lucky to have Giuliana. I have my children. I have my ex-wife, Sarah. I have friends. And there are real problems. And if you accept that, and you don't have such a big ego to think, I'm too big to have problems, or you're so narcissism, unfortunately, I mean, that's just like a condition that it's unsolvable in a way. But accept that you have issues and problems, and try to be very realistic about what the root of that is, and don't reflect it on those that are around you that love you and want to be there for you. Keep the love. I think going back to this, but like Giuliana and I, we're both people that in our own ways grew up independently, have had our life experiences, thankfully some very negative, but mostly positive. Look where we arrived at places we never in our wildest dreams imagined. And, it doesn't mean we're not human and we don't have our struggles or problems, especially now with what's going on. But I don't blame her for stuff. She doesn't blame me for stuff. There's just a natural feeling of, here we are, we're in it together.
I really love the way you describe it. And I think that there's a really important message there that I'd like to highlight. You talked about the sense of self in the realm of accountability, that you're holding yourself, your own feet to the fire when it comes to the kind of human being that you are. And I would submit that we're all looking for love, barring you are a narcissist, then it would be a bad version of it, or, toxic and such. But let's just talk about the scale of normalcy when most humans are seeking connection and love. And there's so many books, movies, therapies, all reality shows. There's all kinds of methodology by which people seek that perfect partner. But what you just described, I think, is universal truth that's worth thinking about. If you truly are the version of yourself that you would want to present to somebody else, or close to it, we're not seeking perfection, we're seeking that awareness. So if you're self-aware enough that you can hold yourself accountable and really strive to be the best human to everyone, even strangers that you meet for a brief moment, it sets you up for success. So when a person like Giuliana comes along through serendipitous circumstances, you're ready to receive it. So the answer is within all along. It's like this Wizard of Oz. You have the power.
Yeah.
And it is empowering in a sense, because it puts us in a driver's seat. If you want to be a good person, then be a good person. And it's not guaranteed you'll meet somebody that's at that level and that you can really build something with, unfortunately, that's a wild card.
Totally wild card.
But if you do, you'll be ready to pursue it and it will work, more importantly.
Yeah.
You said something else that really stood out to me. You made this comment when you were referencing your ex-wife, Sarah. You said it didn't interrupt our relationship. And it really stood out to me because what does it really mean? Interruption means a pause in some type of a continuum. And I think where we humans tend to err is that we see each segment as zero-sum game. It's a complete thing.
Yeah.
But it isn't, is it? It's a scale. And even what's happening today is something that's happening to humanity and human history, but individual lives. And what matters the most is not what's today, but what's on the other side of it. Because it is a continuum. How do we come out of it? What kind of humans are we?
Yeah.
You see so much love in this amazingly distressing, like horror-inducing time of our history. And you see two people in practically hazmat suits, dressed head to toe in protective gear, hugging each other. You see people donating supplies. You see so much heart.
Yeah.
And I think that's what defines humanity, not what happens to it. And I think it's so much more raw now. If you are a jerk, it's going to be amplified. If you're a good soul, that's your shining moment.
Wow. Yeah.
And I think people like you, crisis or not, you've always been in that realm. You've conducted yourself accordingly. I mean, when people witness those again that watch the show, your relationship with your ex-wife, I think it might have been the most shocking part. And reality series of any sort is supposed to be about shock value. But this is a whole other level. And it was not made up, not scripted, not meant to create drama. But it was a shock that was very authentic, if you will. Because most people that are in the situation of extended families, even if they're not adversarial, they certainly would not use the word love in ongoing concern or relational concern. I think that was probably one of the most powerful moments in television, in reality TV specifically, because so many families struggle in that dynamic, and it's near impossible to understand how is it that you have so much generosity, emotional generosity, to include someone that you no longer are, in a romantic relationship and have this kind of blend.
Yeah.
But it does.